Hi, my name is Christelle, and today I'm going to talk about something that is essential and requires some sort of attention and deserves to be discussed, but also something that is personal to me, and that would be a lack of resources that go towards rural schools. Schools in rural areas, and specific to my experience, don't have classes that prepare you for college or just to put you out there into the real world. These could be classes like AP or honors, and those classes can be crucial to the learning experience. There is an article called the National Center for Education Statistics, and it mentions that rural schools serve about 9.3 million students across the US, but as I said, they lack the same opportunities as their peers in the city, so when they are all entering life at the same time, they are at a disadvantage. Not only a lack of variety of classes that are offered are the issue within rural schools, but also the technology and materials that are given to schools that are in these small little areas. I have a bar graph here that kind of represents this large gap within schools in urban areas and bigger cities and schools in rural areas, and how big of an issue this is. A lack of materials, for example, in maybe an art class, requires these students in these rural areas to pay for things on their own, and it forces a lack of motivation to even be in these classes in the first place. They're having to spend a lot of money on these materials, and being in these rural areas in the first place, it's a lot of people who don't have as much money as people who might live in the city. So creates a humongous gap. Another aspect that I felt lacked in rural schools, especially from my experience, this was something that was hard for me being in a smaller school and coming to a bigger college, was a lack of extracurricular activities. I believe that all these extra activities provide hands-on experiences, and it kind of gives you an idea of your interests and what you're not interested in, and that helps you go into life kind of having an idea of what you might want to do. And I think not having those extracurricular activities just causes a lot of confusion. It has a lot of students in these smaller areas a little bit scared and unsure of what they might want to do because they didn't have all this experience. For example, I have a friend who went to a bigger school. She was able to do a lot of chemistry clubs, extracurriculars, labs, and none of those classes were offered in a smaller school that I went to. So I would not have any idea that I would want to do something like that because there was never opportunities for it. Same thing, there was not a lot of art clubs, art classes, art anything, and it was something that I had to do on my own to figure out that that's something that I enjoyed, but it wasn't something that a lot of students that I went to school with had the opportunity of experiencing and understanding whether or not they might want to actually pursue that. So what can we do to bridge this gap between students in urban areas and students in rural areas? First, we need to focus on increasing funding for these rural schools. Increasing the funding would lead to advancement in technology, more advanced classes and variety of classes, and more extracurricular activities and clubs. There are already some solutions to the funding for rural schools. I will put that up on the screen. To address the situation on priority in funding, states can revise their education standards and shift their focus on the unique challenges that rural schools face instead of the enrollment numbers and population status. Some of these challenges can include transportation, and usually in rural schools, students don't live close to the school that they attend, versus in urban areas, there are an allotment of schools in the city. They go to the school that they can typically walk to. So transportation would have a necessity for extra funding. States can also recognize the higher cost per student, and since rural schools have a lower enrollment number, this would provide insight onto how this would not take an extreme amount out of the budget in taxation. Also, reducing reliance on property taxes. These schools don't generate as much money as schools in urban areas, so taking funds out of other areas such as federal education grants or state level revenue would also be very beneficial instead of focusing on taxation itself. An example of a successful school that received a beneficial amount of funding would be Somerset High School in Somerset, Texas. In 2021, Somerset High School received a 3-year, $12 million federal grant in collaboration with the National Institute for Excellence in Teaching. Of course, this funding went towards academics and also to strengthen learning to prepare these students for high school. Provide a picture of the article that states this. Overall, if we invest in rural schools, we can close this gap and every student will have an equal and fair shot at success in life. And education should always be equal no matter where you live and no matter your circumstances.